I didn't touch it. There we go. Okay, good morning, everyone. Today is January 15th, and this is the House Ways and Means Committee hearing room. And before we begin our briefing, I would just like to welcome the young men from Boys Latin who are in the roster today. Stand up. Stand up. Go ahead and stand up. And it is my understanding that you all are in middle school in 8th grade? Is that right? Okay, 8th grade. Well, welcome. So this is the Ways and Means Committee. And so what we oversee in this committee are all pieces of legislation that have to pass the House and the Senate, quite frankly, that relate to education policy for the state, election law for the state, gaming, casinos, and lottery, which is what we'll be talking about today. And also, I'm missing something. I thought I said election law, but election law. Revenues, taxes. I'm blocking it out because that's a very big one for this year, and I'm already stressed about it. So those are the issues that we hear, and probably what you all would be most interested in would be education policy, but we're not going to hear that today. We start our bill hearings next week. This week we're having briefings, and maybe some briefings next week. Oh, we have a big one on education next week in the brand new joint hearing room, so that'll be very exciting. So today we are going to be hearing from our Maryland Lottery and Gaming Control Agency, but just wanted to take a time to welcome you all. We know you're not spending the whole time with us, so when you sneak out, that's totally fine. But again, welcome, happy to have you here. Okay, folks, so our first briefing for today, we would like to welcome back and say Happy New Year to the Executive Director of our Maryland Lottery and Gaming Control Agency, and Mr. Butler is here with you. I don't know, you guys can run it however you want, and Jennifer Beskid, Director of Legislation and Policy, is here, and so I will turn it over to you. We do have an entirely new microphone system, and it picks up, I'm just reminding the committee that it picks up every little whisper that you say. And with that, I will turn it over to you. There you go.
Thank you, Chair Atterbury. Also, I'd like to acknowledge, say hello to Vice Chair Wilkins. Good morning, all the members of the Ways and Means Committee. Again, by way of introduction, my name is John Martin. I'm the Director of the Maryland Lottery and Gaming Control Agency. With me today, James Butler, Assistant Deputy Director, Chief of Staff, as well as Jennifer Beskid, our Director of Legislation and Policy Development. Today's agenda, very briefly go through the items that you see on your screen here. We're going to talk about our three major segments: our traditional lottery segment, our casinos, sports wagering, also share with you some upcoming actions for the end of fiscal 25, beginning of fiscal 26, and also, just by way of rounding it out, talk about the ancillary gaming oversight roles that we have here at Maryland Lottery and Gaming. Just to, for example, give you a sense for the fiscal year end, let me go back to that, I'm sorry. The numbers that you see here on your screen, we had over $2.7 billion in sales in fiscal 24, which ended obviously June 30th. Nearly $700 million in profit. In the lower left-hand corner there, you see some of the set-asides, if you will, or programs that we provide revenue for that benefit from lottery sales. The vast majority of that being the state's general fund. We are the fourth largest contributor to general fund revenues, behind personal income tax, sales and use tax, and corporate tax, and it's been that way for several years. The game mix on the lottery side, if you're not familiar with the lottery products, we offer draw games, monitor games, and jackpot games. There are broken up on the screen here. You see in front of you the daily draw games. Those are pick 3, pick 4, pick 5 that lead the way. And these are things that are purchased at any of our 4,300 retailer locations around the state. They are generated at a point of sale terminal by a clerk or from a self-service vending machine that the player opts to use in store. We also have monitor games that are provided primarily in social environments, but all retailers can sell Keno and racetracks tickets. These games run every 3.5 to 4 minutes throughout the day. Jackpot games, Mega Millions, and Powerball, I'll talk more about them in a minute, as well as our multi-match game. And these games, the jackpot games, typically are generated 2-3 times a week. So that gives you the round numbers on what we do from the lottery product side. Scratch-off tickets, many of you are familiar with the scratch-off family that we have of games throughout our network. We have more than 50 active scratch-off tickets at any given point. Every month we refresh that and provide new tickets into the marketplace. Prices range from a single dollar up to $50 tickets. And the prizes that players may win run from $1 up to $5 million as the top prize. Select games throughout the year are eligible for second chance promotions, a way for a player to extend value on their lottery purchase. And these second chance prizes may include additional cash options, merchandise, trips, experiential prizes. Players find a lot of value and entertainment with the second chance games as well. We have a relatively new category. It started in February of 2020 called Fast Play Games, which are kind of a hybrid. They are the instant win that you get from a scratch-off, but they generate from a terminal or self-service vending machine. And play styles are very similar to what people see in retail at a scratch-off. Price points range from $1 to $30, and certain games have a progressive jackpot that grows until it's won. And those prices can run into the hundreds of thousands, and on the larger price points, millions of dollars in terms of the fast play progressive jackpots. So to summarize, on the lottery sales side and profits, our sales of $2.7 billion plus in fiscal 24, profits of nearly $700 million. You see here the breakdown of the games throughout the product lineup. The lower right-hand corner, I'll just talk to it very briefly. We'll talk more about it later. We also have a very specific program called the Instant Ticket Lottery Machine, ITLM. You'll hear it referred to later. And that's exclusive to our veteran services organizations. Relatively small in focus in terms of the overall mix, but significant certainly in terms of how it supports veteran services organizations throughout the state. So as I look at the numbers in terms of comparison over the last several years, here you see a very top level, fiscal 22, 23, and 24. You'll notice 23 and 24 were significantly higher than 22, and they unfortunately have been outliers. A couple things happened in fiscal 23 and 24 that contributed to the larger sales and profit numbers. First off, we had our 50th anniversary of the lottery. We began in May of 1973. So 2023 was our 50th anniversary. We had a number of products and promotions that incentivized players to make additional purchases. We benefited from launching our $50 scratch-off ticket that year as well. And in both years, fiscal 23 and 24, we benefited, the whole industry did, from large billion-dollar jackpots on both Powerball and Mega Millions. Since their inception, we've had $12 billion jackpots plus on Powerball and Mega Millions. 8 of the 12, were in fiscal 23 and 24. For comparison purposes, we've had 1 in fiscal 25. So a long-winded way of saying that we'll probably regress back to the mean in fiscal 25 and 26, much closer to the 2.6 sales number than the larger numbers in 23 and 24. But we are in the gambling business, and sometimes those things can swing pretty quickly, but we will give you updates throughout the year. On the casino front, we regulate casinos. We run the lottery, but we regulate casinos and sports wagering. And so many of you, based on your jurisdictional areas of influence, are already familiar with the 6 Maryland casinos throughout the state. I will very briefly give you a snapshot on how these casinos have performed in fiscal 24. I've ranked them in order of their fiscal 24 contributions to the state, the largest being MGM National Harbor, Live casino in Arundel County. And you see current numbers for all of them in terms of how large their gaming floor is in slot machines, table games, and employee count. Horseshoe Casino downtown Baltimore. Our fourth casino, Hollywood in Perryville. Ocean Downs on the eastern shore. And Rocky Gap Casino in western Maryland. So again, looking at casino numbers in terms of fiscal year comparisons, 22, 23, and 24, you'll see the revenue that is delivered to the state and then the corresponding contribution. To give you some perspective on the programs that the casinos benefit, far and away the largest beneficiary is the Education Trust Fund, over 30% of that revenue number, roughly $600 million last year, went to the Education Trust Fund. The local aid for jurisdictions where casinos are located gets about 5% of the contribution. The horse racing industry also slightly less than 5% of the contribution. The small minority and women-owned business fund gets about 1%. And then finally, the problem gambling fund gets about $4.4 million. So that's the breakout of the casino contributions. The sports wagering business, again, we regulate sports wagering. We, as the Maryland Lottery, provide the enforcement of the regulations, enacting and enforcing of the regulations to get that industry up and running. We conduct the background investigations to determine applicants' honesty, integrity, and character. We worked with the Sports Wagering Application Review Commission. They were established by sports wagering law to conduct the competitive process to award the licenses. They then make their recommendation to us once they find just cause and suitability that an applicant is deserves a license to be in the public interest. We then go forward and issue the license. Today, January of 2025, we have 24 total sports books. And again, a sports book is either retail or mobile entity where you can purchase your wager on a variety of available options in most all sports categories for games that are played around the country, not just in Maryland. On the left-hand side, you'll notice if you look through the list there, you'll see casinos, you'll see off-track betting locations, you'll see bingo halls, you'll also see the Commanders Stadium location, as well as a couple of social sports bars that provide retail sportsbook activity. On the right-hand side of the screen, you'll again recognize some of those names, and most notably DraftKings and FanDuel, who participate in the mobile sportsbook, and the two of them account for easily 75 to 80% of the mobile sports market. We do have a few potential applications in the pipeline still, even though we are several years past the enacting legislation. We have on the retail sportsbook side a handful of locations still looking to prepare themselves for a launch. I don't have specific dates, but we continue to work with these entities. And on the right-hand side, a couple of sportsbooks that are pending. But you'll notice there that the Queen Sportsbook has an asterisk, double asterisk, which means check below that they will be soon relinquishing their license as they're part of an acquisition from Bally's, who is already a licensee. So that gives you the landscape on sports wagering in terms of who's who, the numbers historically, and I just limited it to the fiscal 23 and 24 because that was really the impact of mobile sports wagering. And you'll notice on the top half of the screen that the contribution to the state last year was over $60 million. Just to give you a quick update, today, here we are at the midpoint of fiscal 25, and our contributions stand at over $46.5 million. So we are clearly on pace to exceed the previous fiscal year contribution. And while I wouldn't just extrapolate a multiplier and say we'll be twice that, we should see some significant growth in the months ahead as we continue with the conclusion of the professional football season and into the college basketball season. And then typically there's a little bit of a lull in the spring before things pick up again, late summer and early fall with professional and college football. On the far right here, let me go back to a second. That far right column talks about expired prizes, and the expired prizes from sports wagering are one of the elements that contribute to our problem gambling fund. And in addition to the expired prizes, we also have contributions that come from the casinos, assessments on the slot machines and table games. So those things in combination contribute, as you see there, millions of dollars that are managed by the Maryland Department of Health for resources available that are free of charge to all Marylanders for assistance to themselves, the problem gambler, or their family members to get the support and the services they need to help manage their potential gambling addictions and gambling problems. So that continues to be top of mind with us in terms of not only providing the funds that are managed by the Maryland Department of Health, but also in how we go to market each and every day in the lottery, in the casinos, in sports wagering. We take the responsible gaming message very seriously, and our ability to provide training for all of our employees, our retailer network that talk about available resources to players. We help manage, in terms of resources, an 800 gambler helpline number used by many states around the country to assist that effort. We make sure we're reviewing all of our advertising and merchandising to make sure it does not appeal to minors. Sorry, gentlemen behind me, you've got to be 18 to play lottery games in the state of Maryland, as well as working with our partners at the casinos and sports wagering to make sure they support and implement similar standards in all that they do. We also operate a voluntary exclusion program, the VEP, which is a way for individuals to self-exclude themselves from lottery, casino, sports wagering, daily fantasy sports, any of the gaming applications that we manage. And we also are very proud to work with a number of other Maryland agencies and associations in the Alliance for Responsible Gambling, MARG, and conduct timely meetings with that body to make sure that we're helping, again, put the resources where they need to be and provide people the assistance that they need. And lastly, we have submitted our application on a national level to be recertified at the highest level of our responsible gaming verification program to make sure that we're consistent with that development effort. I wanted to also give you a quick perspective on the local regional landscape. You'll notice that we are surrounded by states that are involved with gaming at levels above and beyond what we're involved with, most notably the online lottery and casino marketplace in Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Delaware, Washington, and Virginia. So looking at where we are comparatively and competitively, we continue to do what we can with the resources available, but just gives you a better handle now on where we are regionally with other competitive jurisdictions. Wanted to give you a very quick peek as to what's coming down the line here this year, primarily calendar year 25. We are in the process now of looking at a new contract for our lottery central system. It is far and away the largest contract that any lottery will ever put in place is their lottery central system. It is the nerve center that runs all of the lottery operations. Our initial contract was due to expire in 25. We have a 2-year extension now that was approved at BPW last month, which will give us time now to work through the new RFP process. We'll be also putting an RFP in place this year for our e-licensing system, which drives our regulatory functions on both the casino and the sports wagering side. That system needs to be upgraded, so we'll be putting that out to bid. We are working on the final stages of our advertising contract. That will be expected to be awarded shortly, sometime probably at the end of the first quarter, as that expires in the second quarter of this year. And a few minutes ago, I talked about the ITLM program that's exclusive to veteran services organizations. That contract was due to expire in September of 24, but has been extended to November of 25, pending hopefully some some work through yourself, your peers here at the General Assembly to improve upon the process for the ITLM contract. I want to briefly talk about an issue that was raised with the Legislative Services folks as they put together their work in anticipation of this year's session, and to address what we're doing on the emerging concern with illegal online gaming activities. And as we look and talk to peers across the country, a lot of best practices being shared, a lot of comparisons being made to what people are doing in other jurisdictions. It is clear that there are a number of operators who do function offshore and beyond our borders and operating within Maryland and offering illegal casino-style games and sports wagering games to Marylanders. The problems, the concerns, the challenges that this raises for us, and that I'm sure you're aware of and should be equally concerned, is that the state does not benefit from any tax on the gaming revenue that's generated by these illegal jurisdictions, these illegal organizations. There's no facility to intercept tax or state debts like we do in regulated markets. It continues to drive a wedge and drive players away from the legal operators towards illegal markets. Really not a lot of care or consideration given to consumer protection measures like age verification and responsible gaming. So clearly it is something that we have already recognized here within Maryland Lottery and Gaming, and we work with a network of about 12 to 15 states on a monthly basis and have calls to determine what's working in those jurisdictions in terms of things like cease and desist letters. Several states around the country, including Maryland, have sent those out to legal operators, informing them that there's websites are illegal and their business is not wanted or appreciated here in the state of Maryland. So what we're doing is following up specifically. We've already sent 11 cease and desist letters out to illegal operators. 6 have responded. Predictably, they've responded with ways that they feel their businesses are, in fact, compliant and legal. So that will be an iterative process that we'll work through. None to date have agreed to block access, which is what we had asked. So we'll continue to follow up, work with our AG's office, work with our network of other peer organizations, other states, regulators, and continue working on this. It is something that we may get some assistance on a federal level, but it's certainly something that I think we're going to have to work through on a state-by-state basis. I want to very briefly touch on the ancillary oversight responsibilities we have. As I mentioned earlier, there are 4 key segments that we have, and we don't necessarily get revenue from these segments. Some of them are just regulatory and oversight only, but you'll see them on your screen, and I'll just talk to each one very briefly. Electronic instant bingo machines. This is something that has been grandfathered in Anne Arundel and Calvert counties. We do not receive revenue from the machines, but we do make sure that they are staying within the guidelines and rules and regulations as put in place for electronic instant bingo. The ITLM Instant Ticket Lottery Machine Program. Again, this is the Veteran Services Organization. There are about 400 machines in roughly 90 qualified veteran posts. Since the program exception in September of 2014, over $53 million has been generated for veterans posts, which is very valuable to them. As I said, it's really not a big element in our overall portfolio, but extremely important to the veteran services organizations. We also have oversight for skills-based amusement devices. You see a picture here. Many of you are familiar with the machines that you might see in Ocean City or in other locations that have an appeal to these types of games. We do provide a regulatory oversight and make sure that there are certain rules in place, and that right now we have registrations from about 29 active device owners with over 3,000 devices at nearly 400 locations. So again, we don't receive revenue from this, but we do have the oversight responsibility. And lastly, our responsibility with daily fantasy sports competitions. As a function of of a regulation and a change in 2018, that responsibility was moved from the comptroller's office to our agency, and we currently have 17 operators that are registered, and we accept and receive quarterly tax payments from these 17 operators, and those funds go to the blueprint for Maryland's Future Fund. And last year was, in total, less than about $1 million, over $980,000 in terms of contributions. That is a lot to throw at you, but I wanted to keep the time short in order to allow us the opportunity to entertain questions that you might have.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation and the update. I just would like to point out from the young men from Boys Latin, you noticed that $600 million of revenue from gaming and lottery does go to education in the state. And the director pointed out how seriously they take responsible gaming and making it safe for Marylanders who participate. So I just wanted to point that out. I'm going to start out with a couple of questions, and then there's already a couple of lights have been on for a long time. Some people have been waiting for this briefing. So it is no surprise that I have an interest based upon capturing the legal market of iGaming and also to ensure that it's safe and from a revenue perspective. So you pointed out that 11 cease and desist letters went out, 6 responded saying that they are, of course, safe and doing everything that they're supposed to do. Do we know where these companies are located that are operating these illegal online gaming?
Yes, we do. And to put more context to that, Madam Chair, is that we sent out 11. There are dozens, if not hundreds, of these entities across the country. So by no means, no one should be misled to think, boy, once we get these 11 nailed down, we're good to go. It's almost like, and I apologize for using the term, but the whack-a-mole concept is something that we use in the industry. So once you think you've got one secure, another one pops up. So of these, the vast majority are in fact offshore. It's very rare that they're a domestic based company, because that would be, quite frankly, a little bit easier to pursue. So they're offshore. It's very difficult to, you certainly can't serve them papers easily. It's a very difficult way to do that.
So is it safe to say, or fair to say, that if they're offshore, they're operating offshore, they have no incentive to respond, quite frankly, or to even comply with our Attorney General?
While I'm not privy to those meetings, I would say that's probably, they probably put in a folder with letters they get from every other jurisdiction. And
they're operating offshore. They're not regulated by any Maryland regulations, by you or by statute. So is it also fair to say that, minors can access them? There's no safeguards or rail guards on them related to responsible gaming. Is that accurate?
They certainly don't abide by the same guidelines and rules that a regulated entity would do.
And do you recall, because I don't have all my research from last session, but no fear, it'll be out soon, what, to the tune of Marylanders, what the revenue is being generated for illegal online gaming? Do you remember?
You know what? I should have that as well. It's probably in the same folder that you have that neither one of us have today. But yes, it's when you look at it on a national basis, especially with sports wagering and casino gaming online, the numbers are staggering. You're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars nationally. And then when you break that down into the state of Maryland, it's still a significant number in terms of that market potential.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to shift just 2 quick hot off the press kind of comments. So in our governor's budget, he is recommending that mobiles, the tax rate for our mobile betting, sports betting, go from 15% to 30%, and that table games go from 20% to 25%. He's suggesting that the table games increase will generate about $31 million in revenue. And I don't so much want to focus on the table games right now, and I'm prefacing this by saying, if you don't have an answer for this, because he just released this information, that's absolutely fine. But the mobile sports betting seems like a significant jump and tax increase. So I'm wondering if you know, one, what effect, if any, that might have on our operators, in particular, our smaller operators, our minority operators, minority and women-owned operators, and if you know what type of revenue that would generate, that significant of an increase.
Since you've given me that door to sneak through, I'm going to take advantage of that. And since I have not obviously read the budget yet, I would like to take a look at it and get back to you with when our team can assess what the potential would be.
Thank you. Okay, now I'll go ahead and open it up to the committee for questions, starting with Delegate Buckle.
Madam Chair, I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Martin. It's good to see you. I just had a couple of questions. First and foremost, where is the agency on iLottery? You know, we heard things last year about potential iLottery bills and the expansion of lottery services to a purely internet or digital-based format. Does the agency intend to continue to pursue that this year or not?
Currently, there's no plan to do that. We continue to monitor iLottery installations around the country and continue to do our due diligence and be prepared. But for now, that's really not a priority that we have.
Okay. And then my second question, and dovetails a little bit of what Chair Atterbury just said. Delegate Feldmark, herself, and I just attended this budget briefing with the governor, where he revealed that he's going to propose to double basically the tax rate on sports gaming operators here in the state. And at the same time, my understanding is your agency has promulgated a regulation that would affect their promotional play possibilities. And in essence, it would tax to a certain extent, or it would charge them as real revenue to them what they extend in promotional play. My understanding is the agency withdrew the proposed regulation for brick and mortar casinos that was going to be treated the same way. They wouldn't get the same benefits they've had historically for promotional play credits, but you're going to keep in place that alteration of the promotional play formula for sports gaming. Does the fact that at the same time the governor is proposing to double their taxation rate, does that affect the agency's position on that of, hey, we may be pinching these operators to the point where they squeal, quite frankly, of we're doubling their taxes and we're taking away their promotional play all at the same time? Or are you still intend to proceed with that regulation?
I appreciate the question. Again, I'm going to take advantage of the fact that I have not yet read the full budget guideline from the governor, so I'll be happy to get back to you once we can assess that impact.
And we've talked many times, I'm a very transparent person. I'm really against taking away that promotional play credit to them, particularly at the same time that we're going to double their tax rate if that's what happens. You know, we want these businesses to generate revenue. You've seen we've generated billions of dollars of revenue through these industries over the years. We don't want to pinch them to the point where it becomes economically infeasible for them to really be players in Maryland. My final question is along the same lines. Looking at the numbers that you've given us about the casinos, it seems to me that with the exception potentially of the live casino and hotel here in Anne Arundel County, they're all going down. That wasn't something I've been on the committee for 11 years now. It's not something we typically ever see. We typically saw gaming going up, sometimes spectacularly, sometimes steadily. Horseshoe Casino has over 10% revenue yield down. The casino where I live, Rocky Gap, over 10% revenue yield down. Do you have any concerns as to the viability of the casinos and some sensitivity to, we can't just keep going back to them and saying we need more, because they're not really thriving from a year. I mean, when MGM is down, the percentage they're down, that's probably one of the biggest casinos on the East Coast, I think, sure, by take and yield and handle. When they're losing, not losing money, but when they're losing their revenue from year to year, and we're losing too, we're already losing, do you think it makes sense for us to continue to put those types of additional pressures, either tax or regulatory, on them in this environment?
I think some of the things we're seeing on a national basis, regional casino activities are challenged not only on the Mid-Atlantic geography, but all over the country. So I would not say it's unique to us. Okay. And I think it's something that as many of these players do participate in those other markets as well. You know, they're facing it and facing those pressures. Again, I think we'll review what we've got in front of us at this point, but that's, unfortunately, I think you're seeing kind of a leveling off in.
Yeah. And do you think, and you're an expert in the field, spend a lot of your time, you and your staff, with this, do you think that that's a function of an economic conditions factor? If people may just have less money with inflationary pressures to spend on these types of activities? Or is it potentially a function of oversaturation, that there's just so many opportunities for people to gamble in one way or another, that some of the brick and mortar casinos from which we usually take our biggest yields are suffering because of this plethora of, I can gamble, walking down the street, I can gamble 5,000 different ways?
I think you're correct in both of those. I think there are, in some jurisdictions and some of these properties may feel pressure one side or the other, but I would agree with you. I think both of those issues are contributory.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time. I look forward to working with you this session.
Thank you, Delegate.
Okay, Delegate Hartman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for being here today with the presentation. Last year, as you know, there was a big push on iGaming. Just curious, were we alone in that, or were there other states attempting to pass some sort of iGaming last year?
I think last year there may have been 4 or 5 states that all attempted. I'm not aware of any that were successful. I think they all eventually did not pass.
I thought last year when we were doing, I thought there was a few more than that. But did it outline any reasons? Was it, was there concern of cannibalization of the brick and mortar, or did any of the states that from your research show as to why they abandoned the effort or why it didn't pass?
I think each state has their own nuanced reasons why what matters to that state or that group. I don't know that there's any one pervasive thing that would have contributed to that. I think you're right. Some people may view it as a cannibalization or competitiveness variable, but I will say that the 7 or 8 states that are working successfully in that space, actually I think it's closer to 10 to 12, but the states that aren't evidencing those concerns.
So the ones that have passed that you're saying, okay, that's interesting. I have to do a little digging on that. We talked about the illegal gaming and the fact that most of it's offshore. Is there a belief? I mean, we legalized cannabis, marijuana, whatever you want to call it, and there's still a black market. Legalizing something didn't. Is there a thought that if we passed iGaming, that would eliminate some of that illegal gaming?
Yes, there's definitely a thought of that. Is any time, and we have seen that with sports wagering. Anytime you can take and legalize a market, sports wagering, as we did several years ago, you're going to see it impact the illegal market. People are going to shift from an unregulated to a regulated market. But to your point, it doesn't eradicate it.
Yeah, because I was going to say, we thought that with cannabis and it didn't work. So I'm surprised to see that we're still thinking that may be the salvation on gaming. Thank you. I appreciate the answers, though.
Thank you, Delegate.
Yeah.
I'll just note that it actually, so this committee did not oversee, that's in Economic Matters, the legalization of cannabis, but in the governor's budget, he does propose in fiscal 27 an increase in the tax rate from 9% to 15% because that illegal market has significantly shrunk. So they are seeing that it is pushing the illegal market out in the cannabis industry. Delegate Hornberger. Well, he just stepped out, so Delegate Long.
Thank you. I was waiting for Delegate Hornberger. I was hoping he would ask my question. The question I have is, there's a lot of material here and there's a lot to digest. One of the things I'd like to ask, is there any way to pinpoint what cause and effect of raising taxes, less expendable or less money to be spent, if that has a play in the downturn in some of these casinos? Or is it because of some of the regulations we've changed? I don't know if I made that perfectly clear. I'm not a mathematician. I wish I was. I could figure it out on my own. But I would think that there would be some way that we could actually identify why some of these casinos are down more than others.
I wish I could get you a better answer, because I think, again, each unique situation has its own variables that contribute to that. I think it may be equal parts where they're located, their amenities, the other programs and things they offer, how they're affiliated with other organizations around the country. If they happen to be a rewards club member and they have multiple locations and they are able to pull from a larger group. I think they all do a great job of promoting and managing the games, and certainly from our perspective are doing it within the guidelines and doing the things they could and should be doing. But I'd be hard pressed to tell you why in one instance versus another, somebody may be down X percent and somebody else may be up.
One last question, if I might. Illegal gambling, is that done through Bitcoin, and is it done through the dark net? Or, I mean, I'm not an online gambler by no means, but I'm just curious. Maybe I don't want to advertise it, but.
No, if anything, it's a great question, Delegate. Thank you. For a lot of people who aren't in the industry, just a consumer, it looks the same. So and that's the thing that makes it difficult. It looks like it should be a regulated site, but it is not. So the games, the payoffs, the people advertising it and promoting it give the appearance it's all on the up and up. Unfortunately, it's not. And it's very difficult sometimes from a player's perspective to discern the difference between what's legal and what is not legal.
Well, one of the things that that you had mentioned, that there's no taxes being taken out on winnings. So, I mean, that alone has got to be a big draw.
Oh, sure.
But the question I have, I guess, the question is, how are they paying for it? Are they paying through Bitcoin, through charge cards? I mean, have you got an idea how this money's being sent overseas? It
is not as complex as you think. These illegal sites will allow you to put it on your credit card and
Really?
you're in the game. So, you don't need to do anything as elaborate as Bitcoin to be in the illegal gaming market.
All right, thank you.
Delegate Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for being with us today. I am going to go kind of piggyback on what was already said, particularly as far as that illegal market. Are there any states that are doing it well that those illegal operators do avoid because there either are penalties or ways to stop them from operating within the state?
As an industry, we all kind of hold up Michigan as an example. My friend Henry Williams does a great job there in running the business. They are taking very, very stern, no-nonsense approach to it. They've been, I think, the guiding light for us. Many of us have tried to emulate things that they're doing. And as I mentioned earlier in my presentation, we talk with them monthly. We talk with, again, a dozen different regulators in states and find out who's doing what's working in those jurisdictions. We're seeing some progress, slow, but again, they're illegal gaming sites for a reason. It's in their name. They're illegal. So they're never going to throw in the towel and say, oh, you got us. We're done. They're always going to find ways to continue doing that. So it's an ongoing effort.
Okay. And is there any legislative help or anything that you guys need at this point?
In the industry's perspective, while I appreciate the offer, I think, and at the risk of really doing this going off script here, I think a lot of the talk is going to be on a federal level. I think some of these things really have to happen because, again, you're talking about a state-by-state basis versus maybe some federal guidance there. And Bill Miller, who's the CEO of the American Gaming Association, is taking that charge head on and going to be working with, I believe, the new administration and seeing what can be done nationally. But otherwise, we'll do what we can do. But again, as we talked about before, there's not a lot of oomph behind what we can offer and a lot of commitment from the illegals to really address what we're asking.
All right. Thank you. If there's any way we can help, let us know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Delegate Hornberger.
I apologize. Yeah, I apologize. Thank you for the presentation and to the young men that are present here. So walk me through this process of these bad actors. So you've issued them a letter. Is this something where the Attorney General's office would get involved? Is there a national consortium that goes after these folks? Let's say you're fortunate enough to get your hooks into one. What does that process look like? And is there fines that are associated with this?
The process is evolving. Each time, each day seems to be different, but for the most part, as I mentioned when Delegate Long asked us a similar question, is from a player's perspective, it looks like they're playing a legitimate site. So they don't know that they're playing on an illegal site. So once we become aware of that, and we work with other jurisdictions around the country, send a cease and desist letter. We're working with our AG's office to make sure that we're managing along. In some instances, as I said before, we get back a letter from their counsel representing about why they think it's legal. So there's that iterative back and forth with lawyers that will happen. It's very rare that someone's going to just fold up and say, "Oh, you got us, we're done."
Right.
No, they're going to continue to find avenues to continue doing what they're doing.
But have we, as the legislature, given you the tools? Because it sounds like we haven't prosecuted one yet, or it sounds like maybe nationally that's not even occurred. Have we, as the legislature, given you the teeth to actually nail one of these down?
Yeah. We can look at that. I'm not optimistic that's going to help us. But if there's a way we can do something, I'm more happy to sit down and find out.
Okay, I'll reiterate the question. Have we, as a legislature, given you the tools that you need, or the Attorney General, to go after these bad actors? Yes or no?
I'm not aware of any.
Okay. So, thank you.
So I think Delegate Buckle, you missed the part where a lot of them are offshore.
Correct.
Right, so as Marylanders, we cannot go after them because that's international territory. So just legally, no, even if we pass something. So
Gotcha.
he's saying we need to do something federally, or we could pass iGaming and try to shrink the market. Delegate Ebersol.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, so first, a couple of quick questions. When we talk about the ancillaries, it's good for us to get a sense of the landscape. First, we have electronic instant bingo machines, which you say we license them, but we don't charge a fee on those at all. Do we collect anything? Do we collect a tax on those at all, on what the money won?
No, we collect nothing from that.
Okay, so they are strictly for the proprietors of them. The money goes to them, to the bingo parlors in this case.
Correct.
All right, and then ITLMs, I understand where they are. They're similar to a normal person. They would look like slot machines, but they are in some of our fraternal organizations, and we're looking maybe at some others. How much do we collect from them? Because we divide that money up pretty well. Do you have any idea what the collection is from them over the course of a year?
Yeah, well, again, you saw on the slide, what we get in aggregate is not a lot.
Yeah.
But yes, there is an algorithm in place where the veterans posts get a certain amount of percentage of money. The national or the organization gets an amount of money, and then we get an amount of money. But again, for the most part, there's not a lot there.
Right. It's less than $5 million, isn't it? Significantly less. I see a nod from one of the knowledgeables in the back there.
Yeah.
So then fantasy sports, let's talk about that, because that existed before we did sports wagering, and we had a little trouble getting our heads wrapped around the fact that it seemed to be sports wagering of some sort. You referenced that we collect tax. What are they selling that we're taxing? If that's where we're getting our money from them, because they pay $100 a year to license, I believe, or something like
Right.
that.
No, they're proceeds. So they're collecting money for their.
If they're selling their online platform to people to use.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
like
yes. So
you can get on here if your club wants to get on here and play fantasy sports here, and you kick in $500 to use their site for the year. That's where you collect a sort of a 6% sales tax on that, or what?
I don't know what the percentage is. JB, do you know what the percent would be? Okay, we're getting 15% on their
Nice.
revenue,
I didn't realize. Okay,
just
good.
like we do with the sports wagering.
Thanks. Okay, so now let's get to the offshore people. We talk about going after them, and actually, I'm interested in finding ways of putting some teeth that Delegate Hornberger refers to. But I also appreciate the chair's concern about the offshores. But you talk about the fact that it's like whack-a-mole, that when you whack one, and they have clever whack-a-moles. Can you talk a little bit about sweepstakes and how it's a workaround for them? And this is something I'm also interested in going after.
Yeah, I think sweepstakes follow a very similar pattern, very similar dynamic, in that there is not clear delineation, I don't believe, yet, as to where they fit in the landscape. I mean, they certainly are not a regulated industry.
But they allow for coins to be earned, but then somehow none of the coins actually can become money in your account, right?
Right.
So it's more or less like very discrete chips at the casino,
Right.
but illegal.
Right, right. Again, they are not a regulated industry. We're certainly having discussions, again, on a national basis. We're pretty well networked into what's working and what's not in terms of addressing these. But until we can get maybe a stronger stance on it, it's going to continue to be just like it is with the other areas.
And so the last one's, and isn't that so? We talked about comparing what we're doing here to cannabis. And one of the advantages of us offering cannabis statewide is that we could regulate it and make sure people were getting safer cannabis because they didn't know what they were getting. When Delegate Long talks about how do we do this, and you talk about giving a credit card number, there's no protections there. And if we have iGaming, it's regulated, then people who are offering their credit card numbers will know that there is some measure of protection for them using their personal information.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, anything that's regulated, there's a whole customer acquisition avenue that people go through, and that provides securities and protections. Not only that we can verify that they are who they say they are, that they are of age, but then it also allows them the protection on the back end to get the monies that are due them.
Too. There's no reason to suspect if they're not going to break the law, getting you that they would break the law also and using your information.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Delegate Young.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the presentation. I have a little bit of it might sound like a dumb question, but it's a real question. Are there non-traditional games that people can play under Maryland law? And what I'm talking about is like Uno, chess. Can I go online and gamble on any of those right now?
Are you, and let me make sure I understand, Douglas. Are you asking if there are ways that they can play those games and gamble on them?
Yeah, in Maryland.
Okay, if they are, they're not doing that in a regulated environment. We have no provision to regulate things like that.
Would there, or have you heard of anything of the sort? And would the department have a position on it?
I've not heard it, but certainly we can discuss that among our group and see if there's something there and report back to you on that.
Thank you so much.
Delegate Long for second bite at the apple.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just sitting here thinking, since these people are they're using their credit card stuff, it would look like it would be easier to track. You know, if the credit card companies were aware of what was going on, and you know, if they're getting payouts back into the credit card, I think it would be an easy way to be able. I would think it'd be a federal law, but the question I have is the payout on illegal gambling. How does that compare to legal gambling? I know there's no taxes. Well, I guess you would have to add taxes back into it, but do you think it's better for them? Do they make more money playing online illegally than they do legally?
Let me address your first comment, because I think you've hit on something we're already addressing, and that is the payment processors. You're correct. Once you start to engage a player in that level of interaction and you have their number, then you can go to the Visas, the MasterCards, the American Express, whoever, and now you're at a leverage point with the payment processor, even if you can't get to the illegal offshore. So that's an excellent comment, and we are working that way. In terms of payouts, correct, that's part of the appeal, is they can offer a higher payout than a regulated industry can, because again, they don't have those other variables that they have to address, like tax rates.
And I guess my last thing would be is if we propose the new tax increases on the new existing legal casinos, is that going to drive more people to go illegal? Because the money's just going to have to come from somewhere. It's either going to be payout or somewhere, you know, the extra money.
That's a fair question that I'm not prepared to provide an answer today, but I think that's something we'll have to look at as well.
All right, well, if we can take care of the credit card problem, then we'll talk about Bitcoin some other time.
Delegate Fair.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you for coming out, Director Martin. A quick question. We're looking, a few of us are looking at pari-mutuel wagering as an alternative option to online gambling and online gambling. In your opinion, as the director, do you think that pari-mutuel betting and gambling are the same or different?
Well, there's the elements of the action itself are similar, but the payout streams make it different. You know, there are some jurisdictions that have a certain philosophy on using pari-mutuel for some of their traditional lottery games. We're not one of them. Unless there are certain variables that kick in. For instance, if there's a number of winners on a certain prize, we'll go pari-mutuel in the payout of that, but it's not the first option. It's really subsequent based on the game itself. So it does coexist in our marketplace today.
Yeah. And is that considered to be part of the expansion of commercial gaming or gambling in the state of Maryland currently?
Well, the way it is now, it's part of what we already are providing. So we'd have to look at, if you're alluding to some other games coming in that have that mechanism, then we'd have to look at that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think that concludes our questions. Thank you again, Director Martin, for being here and your team for being here. We appreciate the update and you answering our questions, and we will certainly see you again this session.
Look forward to it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Committee, we have a briefing by TEDCO at 1 p.m., so see you then.